All right, today we're going to be talking about UFOs. That's right, UFOs. Now, that's a topic I've been interested in since I was very young. When I first got the internet, that's what I was looking up. Alien stories, all the conspiracy theories about the military hiding technology, reverse engineering. It is really a fascinating topic. What makes it so fascinating is how many reports of people seeing UFOs, people seeing landed craft with alien beings outside, and then you have the whole abduction phenomenon. We literally have thousands of reports for any one of those phenomenon. Yet there's really a dearth of physical evidence. Occasionally we'll get a little tidbit, like a recent New York Times article on the subject did reveal that the Pentagon actually continued its UFO investigation into modern day. So before they said, oh, we closed that down, we're not investigating UFOs, but they lied. They're still doing it. We have people from the program, like Eric Davis. He was a subcontractor and consultant for the Pentagon UFO program. He said that in some cases, examinations of the materials that have supposedly been retrieved have led him to believe that we couldn't make it ourselves. And before that, in the article, they say that a small group of government officials and scientists say that they are convinced that objects of undetermined origin have crashed on Earth with materials retrieved for study. And then Eric Davis, the astrophysicist subcontractor, said he's examined some of those materials and he thinks that they did not come from us, meaning they are extraterrestrial. So on the one hand, we have very lack of physical evidence, but then on the other hand, we have the military who supposedly, people say, former officials say, have retrieved, material from supposed crashes. And some of that material has been examined. Now, I've recently just been going through Ardy Sixkiller Clark's books, and there's one of them right there. She wrote a series of books. First one, Encounters with Star People, then More Encounters with Star People. Then she wrote Sky People, and then Space Age Indians is her last one. And what I really like about her work is she's a former professor at Montana State University, and she's a Native American herself. So she focused on the Native American community and went and investigated UFOs, reports, and stories in that community. And she traveled all around the country. She went to Central America, interviewed indigenous peoples there, and really just listened and got their story. So in her books, she's writing, selected stories that were told to her by Native American and indigenous peoples regarding the UFO phenomenon. Now, she doesn't judge those people. She just listens and asks questions and reports. Another thing I really like about her is she's not just a researcher who's there, tell me your story, okay, see you later. She really spends time with a lot of the people. Sometimes she develops friendships with them. If it's an elder she's speaking to, she'll often bring a gift for them. And so I really like the way she went about her research. Now, on this topic, some people think, if aliens were really out there, they would just show themselves. They would just land on the White House lawn and say, here we are. How about we give you some technology? But I really don't think that's what would happen. So we have to ask ourselves, why would they not want to just reveal themselves in a big way? Just park your spaceship, right next to a major city and say hi. Well, first of all, think about what we would do if we were a spacefaring, species and we came upon a planet in another galaxy that had intelligent life. Do you think we would just go right down there and try to meet their leader? Hell fucking no. We would stay as far away first as we could and just monitor them. We'd have our satellites, whatever, monitor them, learn as much as we could about them, about, the way they interacted, what kind of development stage they were at, what kind of technology they had, what they ate, what they did. We would want to monitor them before we ever took the chance at meeting them. And probably the next step would be to actually go down secretly and literally abduct a few of them, do experiments on them. We'd want to find out about their biology, about their intelligence, all kinds of stuff. And we'd probably also want to collect, other things from the planet. We'd want to collect plants and species from the planet and do our experimentation. Now, would we ever actually go down there and formally introduce ourselves? It's a question that's really hard to answer. I mean, it may be that we would not want to interfere with their natural development. It may be considered unethical even. And consider us, human beings as a species, we are an aggressive, warlike people. Imagine if a UFO, an alien species, did actually want to come down and land and meet our leader. You know what would happen? That spaceship would be surrounded by military and police with guns pointed at them. It would not be a friendly welcome because we fear the unknown. So, just because they don't come down and reveal themselves is not a reason to think that they're not really there. So let's go over some of the phenomenon discussed in Ardy Sixkiller Clark's books. And, she goes through there's a lot of the themes of the UFO and abduction literature in her books. And let's start here. First of all, appearance of beings. Now, we all know the typical gray alien that was made famous by Whitley Strieber's book Communion with the gray alien on the front. But in fact, as you read the literature, you will find that the appearance of aliens differs widely. I mean, there are so many different kinds, it seems. We have tall white aliens with long fingers. We've got lizard-like beings that are scaly and sometimes hiss and grunt. We've got blue, muscular beings, even aliens that look just like humans. And on the surface, you might make sense of that by asserting that there are many different species that visit the Earth. It is a vast universe, after all. And there can't be just one intelligent civilization out there. However, there's also an interesting facet of this phenomenon. Reports that mention that these beings can shapeshift, that they can take whatever form is necessary. So let me read you a quote from one of the encounters from the book. Here I quote, "He," meaning the alien, "said it was difficult for his people to live on Earth, but the longer they stayed, the easier it became. When I asked him why it was difficult because they appeared human, he told me that they could take the forms of humans, but they were not like humans. That's when he told me it would be too difficult for me if I knew what he really looked like. I demanded to know. Something I would soon regret. What do you mean? He showed me his real self, or he showed his real self to me. What did he look like? All of a sudden, Shawnee stood and burst into tears. He was hideous. Half animal, half bug is the best way I can describe him. He changed into this form that was the strangest thing I have ever seen." So, suggesting that they can take any form they want. And oftentimes people describe balls of light materializing into a humanoid form. Here's another quote. "I could make out a circular shadow. It cast a blue light upon the ground. There were 3 balls of light that came out of it. They materialized into human-like figures." And I'll quote another one. Here's another quote. "Once outside, I saw these colorful balls of light. Some were still in the sky, but some were on the ground, and when they hit the earth, they transformed into men." Okay, so here we seem to have more of a spiritual dimension here. beings of light, balls of light that can transform into material form. Now, this is something we know maybe theoretically. We have Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. We know that energy is ultimately matter. They're ultimately the same thing. But thinking about if we could actually attain the ability to transform ourselves back and forth between energy, light, and matter is really quite unimaginable to do such a thing in practice. So let's move on to a purpose. What in the hell are they doing here? So one of the themes that comes across is that they seeded life on Earth and seed life on other planets. Some native tribes have legends of coming from the stars. Their ancestors are from the stars. That's why many of the Native Americans call them star people. So then we have the whole genetic engineering aspect. So we all know they abduct people. They take their semen. They take the woman's eggs. And they make hybrid beings. A lot of times the abductee will go back on the UFO, they will abduct her again and show her a child and say, this is yours. And it will be distinctly a mix between human and alien features. And the hybrids are said to be used to seed other planets. There are even reports in her books of humans themselves, regular old humans, disappearing and going to live on another planet, supposedly. Okay, so when asked, one of the persons she asked, did he reveal if he abducted people and animals? And I quote, not for experimental reasons. He said that they had taken humans to seed other planets, but only with the individual's permission. He said there are many humans who are willing and enthusiastic about leaving the Earth and starting over. If they meet their rigorous psychological tests and are non-violent, they can assist them in their desires. He said many planets shared the same atmosphere as Earth, but not in our solar system. If the atmosphere was not conducive to life, but had the potential, their scientists were capable of altering the environment. So, seeding planets, maybe they started human life off here. Maybe they start life on other planets that are habitable. I mean, it does seem like a plausible thing an advanced race would do. I mean, why not play God? Sounds like fun, you know? It'd be like your children almost. Like, we're going to create these beings, these hybrid beings or whatever kind of beings, and we're going to put them on this planet and watch them grow and develop. It seems like an admirable thing. Another thing, interesting thing they do during abductions that is reported is putting a helmet-like device on the person's head, which the aliens say, at least, is to transfer all knowledge to their databanks. So they're interested in human knowledge and knowing everything that we know. And that's a technology that our scientists today are dreaming of. That one day we can download all of our memories and experiences and then transfer those into another body, becoming, quite frankly, immortal. We could just continue our lives in another body with the same mind we have now. And sometimes aliens seem to be here for more mundane reasons, like just collecting samples of things. There are many reports in her books of aliens seen collecting rocks, collecting plants, minerals, and soil, and then taking them into their ship. Of course, there are many reports of picking up animals of all types. Now, we've all heard cattle mutilation, where farmers or ranchers find their cattle mutilated, usually with surgical precision, organs taken out, all the blood removed with surgical precision. But in her books, it's revealed there are many reports of people seeing a UFO take up an alligator, take up a buffalo, take up all kinds of animals. And basically, a light will come down from the underside of the UFO, and the animal will be levitated in the air up into the UFO is usually how that happens. Also the same with abduction. So, I guess maybe they have a purpose for the organs of those animals. Curiously enough, they're often spotted sucking up water from lakes. So there are many reports of somebody seeing a UFO sucking up water into the UFO from a lake. In just one report from her books, the alien explains what's going on there. So one report describes the purpose of this. I quote, "The walls of the ship are hollow and they fill the walls with water. The water serves as an insulator, a cooling agent when combined with certain chemicals, and drinking water after the chemicals are filtered out. On liftoff, the water acts as a propulsion system to help them, and once they are in space, the water is converted for other uses." So, intriguing. They need water. And then we have to examine some of the extraordinary powers these beings possess. So, one of the things that you find a lot is healing power. They can heal with their hands, with their minds. They don't need medicines. They also have the ability to put people into a trance-like state. In many of the abductions, people will report being on the UFO, for instance, and seeing other people in the UFO, other human beings, but they're in this trance-like stupor where they're not blinking, they're just staring like they're complete zombies or they're out of it. And when the person yells at them or pinches them or tries to get them out of it, nothing works. They're just in a trance-like state. Now, why that one individual is conscious is a mystery. Another thing you'll see is sometimes someone's abducted. Let's say you're out camping with your family and you're abducted. Your other family members are right there, but they are in a deep sleep. You wake up and see the UFO, and you cannot wake up your dad or mom who's beside you. They will just not wake up. So seemingly the aliens could induce this state in people around you. And there's even a phenomenon that it seems almost like they can stop time. There are reports that when the UFO came, here's a quote. Quote, "There was complete silence, which seems strange to me. In the summers, there are always cricket sounds, mosquitoes buzzing, always some sound. But it was as if the world had stopped all sound." So that's another possible interpretation, I guess, is that it's like stopping time around you. That time stops. Now, that's pretty hard to imagine what's going on there. Okay. But it is true that the trance-like in the trance-like state, powerful things can happen. I've read some books. One great book I have with me right here. Brian Inglis. This one is called Trance: A Natural History of Altered States of Mind. And that's quite an interesting book. Might be out of print now, but it goes over a lot of what is capable under hypnosis. People can be convinced of the impossible. They can be made to believe that a certain object or individual is invisible, for instance, so that when they awaken from their trance, they will literally not see the person or object, even though they have no recollection of the suggestion made under hypnosis. And one interesting phenomenon under hypnosis is telling someone that, let's say, a metal rod is actually a hot iron, and you touch it to their skin, but it's actually cold. But you tell them this is a super hot iron. So when you touch it to their skin will redden and boil as if they've actually been burned. It just shows you the power of the mind. And, these alien beings are said to be able to paralyze people. They're able to look at them and paralyze them. And they must be, if this is true, of course, they must be able to, penetrate our minds in a deep way, reach our subconscious minds and control us that way. This might also be the case. You have reports where people, before they're abducted, they will just feel compelled to go to a certain location, or they're driving home from work and they don't know why, but, I should turn down this road. And they turn down a certain road that they don't usually go down, and then they have an abduction. So it could be sort of some kind of subconscious manipulation. There's also the prophecy aspect of the whole thing. So abductees will be told things about what's going to happen to the earth, what's going to happen. And a lot of these are just kind of generalized. We could probably predict anyway, because we know we've been polluting the earth, and they talk about a time where the earth will be destroyed and renewed. But one future revelation I found in Ardy Sixkiller's books that I found interesting because of the current COVID-19 situation is when she talked to a Mayan elder down in the Yucatan. He said, I quote, they, meaning the alien beings, said diseases, no food, and wars would destroy the earth as we know it. A little bit later, he said, there will be diseases at first. People will be afraid to leave their homes. Food will become scarce because there will be no one to produce it. Then the wars will come. So I thought that one was interesting. Because he talks about diseases, sort of kicking things off. And she was asking him about, Cancun. And he said, because a lot of tourists come there, the star people, the aliens, stopped coming. Because the aliens don't want to be seen, actually. A lot of times a lot of reports, people see a landed craft with beings and they're watching from afar. But if they get noticed, the aliens will get back in that craft and get the fuck out of town, buddy. They will be out of there because they don't want humanity at large to interfere or know about them. So she was asking them, do you ever think the tourists will leave Cancun? And he said, yes, because, a time is coming where disease will cause people to be afraid to leave their homes. So, that was written well before anyone knew about COVID. So I thought that one was interesting. Occasionally, the aliens will make reference to a person's destiny, implying they know something about that person's future. One man talked about the time tall, muscular, shimmering blue beings saved him in Vietnam because he was destined to become a healer among his people. There are also reports of meeting one's future spouse on a UFO. One man described seeing a woman on board the UFO briefly and just knew that one day he would marry her. So he saw her first on the UFO, and then he says he felt the star people approved that he should marry her. He later met her in real life at a powwow, and they did indeed become married. Now, the nature of time is quite deep. I've often thought about this myself. If time is a dimension, then it should be theoretically possible to go to a higher dimension outside of time and see all of time at once. And this is something we get with near-death experiences, or people who do DMT sometimes have these experiences where they have an out-of-body experience and they become kind of one with the universe. And they experience knowing all things and seeing everything, past, future, present. Of course, they don't remember that. They just remember the feeling of it when they come back. So it'd be like, say you're a 2D being, like on a sheet of paper. You're a 2D being. And you can look one way on the sheet of paper. Then you have to turn around and look another way on the sheet of paper. Okay? But what if you were a 2D being and then I lifted you up into the sky and suddenly you can look down the whole freaking paper at once? You can see it all. I mean, it'd be kind of like that. If we could lift ourselves to a higher dimension, we could see all time at once. Now, this gets deep because then the question becomes, well, if the future already exists, we just can't see it. We're not outside that dimension where we can see it. Then do we have any free will? I mean, could we possibly change it? How could we if it already exists? Or are there just multiple time streams and we're navigating our way through sort of this river, taking this path, and that leads to the conclusion that really all things exist because all things could possibly happen. There are many directions that could happen. Or maybe the choices we make lead in a certain direction. And of course, that's all we're going to experience. We're only going to experience one path through the woods, so to speak, even though there are many paths we could take. And it's fascinating to think about that, multi-universe theory that, everything could actually exist. Every single decision leads to a different stream of time, but they all coexist. All things are happening. Anyway, that's really deep, but let's get back to the UFO phenomenon. One of the disturbing things that comes up in the abduction literature in Ardy Sixkiller's books is the reports of aliens who lack emotion. This comes up quite a lot, actually, that the aliens were emotionless, almost robotic. Now, not always. Sometimes there is, if not facial expression emotion, there is sort of a deep connection with the being and a feeling of love from them. But a lot of times they're said to lack emotion. And she talked to an elder named Sam, that's a pseudonym, not his real name, about aliens who abduct and perform medical tests on people. And his response was, quote, "They are no longer humans. They intentionally bred from their race the ability to feel love, compassion, and pain, all emotions. They believed it would make for a better world. One without emotions could lead to greater advancement." And we do have to accept the fact that emotions cause problems. Emotions lead to anger, lead to violence, lead to killing, lead to war, irrational decisions. Of course, you have the whole other side of that, the love, the compassion, the feelings of joy. But from a logical standpoint, you could make the argument that maybe we would be better off without emotions. We wouldn't have any more violence because we wouldn't get angry. We could stop wars possibly and just think logically all the time. But then the problem is that makes us robots. And that's my worry for the future. This whole talk about Elon Musk and merging with technology. Yeah, we're going to put computer chips inside our bodies. We're going to have computer chips in our brains, but maybe we're going to lose something of ourselves, some aspect of ourselves in the process, and that's disturbing. I could not imagine a world without emotion. It gives such depth to life. And let me tell you, I have been through the gamut. I have been through serious emotions, especially. Anyway, I won't talk about it. But yeah, that's something that's disturbing. But again, not all the aliens are said to be emotionless. Okay, so where should we go from here? Yes, so we talked about why they probably wouldn't want to just land and reveal themselves. It'd be too dangerous. We'd probably kill them. I mean, think about it. Do you think we would take the chance with alien beings, I really think we would kill them. And in Sixkiller Clark's book, on the topic of crash retrievals, she's got at least one report where the person reporting their story said military officials came in after this UFO crashed, and they told everybody to go home. They blocked off the area. They came in with big trucks and put, I guess, the crash material on these trucks, covered them with tarps, and the military trucked everything out of there and bulldozed the area. And I believe Richard Dolan, he wrote a few books on UFOs, and there are reports of that also in his books. Now, we went back, we talked about the New York Times story where the astrophysicist says he's examined some of those materials and thinks that we couldn't have made those. And officials say that, yes, our government has done this. Now, they can't provide any evidence to the public because this is classified, and they're not allowed to do that. Now, you might think, well, if the military is involved, it would involve a number of soldiers coming in and taking this stuff away. Surely a few of them would talk. But then again, you have to consider, yeah, one of them could talk. They could go public, but who's going to believe them? I mean, it's the same with people who say they've seen aliens or been abducted. Who's going to believe them? And then the military could always say, at least to their soldiers, that this was an experimental craft of our own. And most soldiers would probably not know the difference. They would just assume that it was one of our own, especially if they were just involved with a piece of the material or something like that. So yeah, the phenomenon has interested me for a long time, and I tried to get Ardy Sixkiller Clark on to do a podcast. I'm not sure what her status is because on her website it seems outdated. Her latest book is not listed on her website, so I'm not sure what happened to her. I hope the aliens didn't get her. But anyway, this is Dan from Real Truth, and I'll be back again talking about another subject. I believe next we will talk about the issue of random number generators and manipulating those. It's called the selection effect, I believe, by Herb Mertz. I'm going to have to check on that. But we'll be back with another video in time, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see you later. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments. Are these people just making up stories or hallucinating? What do you think is going on? Or are aliens really coming to Earth and we just don't know about it on a, large scale? So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and this is Dan from Real Truth, signing out.